And for more on both subjects, we are pleased to turn to a name very familiar to local football fans, Howard Cross, former tight end for the New York Football Giants from '89 to 2001, Super Bowl champ and a former broadcaster as well. Howard, I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem, Richie.
I'm curious your perspective because, in the day and age we live in where you see everything 24/7 coverage, one of the few places that's off limits to fans and general public is the locker room. But so much of this story with Incognito and Martin and what we're hearing from guys in the Dolphins and from former and current players around the league is kind of you have to be there to understand. It's a different world with a different set of rules. You live the life. From everything you've heard, and looks like it's going to go to a court here, what's been your take?
I would think that if you were really interested in what's going on, I would think you would take a step back and really look at what's happening. And I don't know the whole situation. I don't know what actually happened in any part of it. But let's actually take a look at it. If I were to say that a person's a killer or a murderer, and then I say that that same person is in the Army, how many people does a soldier, fire shots at? It doesn't apply. The rules don't apply. If I were to say that you're working 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week in a hospital, and you should be paid an X amount, but you're emptying bedpans and changing bandages, you'd be a nurse, not a doctor. I think that everything in society has a place and it just happens. And I think that we try to apply what everyone believes as current social rules to every situation. They just don't apply. You're playing in a sport where your objective is to break the will of another person constantly. You're going out to defeat another man with your physical being, your personal being. You want to overpower that person. And this kid was on a team that did that. Not just a team that did that outwardly, but just did it. The fact that he didn't stand up for himself and didn't fight back, I don't want to turn this into a bashing Jonathan moment, but I want to point out the fact that it's a little odd. It's a little odd that he saved every email. He saved every voicemail. He was repeating this to people outside of the locker room when he never asked for help from people inside of his locker room.
Taking back your rookie in '89, you come out of University of Alabama. What happened to you between hazing, whether it's taxing rookies, making them pick up tabs for dinners? What was some of the worst of it, and did it end after your rookie year?
Well, see, again, you're trying to make it into a hazing, fun-loving moment. This is not the same thing. When guys are getting hazed and asked to buy donuts, or guys are getting hazed and asked to carry shoulder pads, when guys are getting hazed and maybe asked to pick up a bill at a bar or a dinner, it's all fun-loving and it's part of it. What this kid is trying to say, or what this kid is saying, is that it went way beyond that moment, and that these guys were threatening his life and making it a situation or an environment where he really didn't feel safe. As you notice, as you're going to see over the next few weeks, the players on his team are starting to band together, because it won't just be Richie Incognito who will be named to this. It'll be multiple players. So guys are starting to band and scramble to figure out who does Jonathan feel threatened him.
Well, I guess part of the question to us who've never been in an NFL locker room is, who should police an NFL locker room? In that they said reportedly, let's just say if the reports are true, that Incognito and maybe somebody else on the line would say, toughen up this guy. He's either soft or is not pulling his weight. Should that be left to the players? Do we trust guys like Incognito to see where the line starts and stops? Do the coaches know? Give us the reality about, as you say, you can't apply rules of normal society to a football team or into different walks of life. What should the rules be in a locker room, and who decides where that line starts and ends?
All right, let's switch the scenario, because I think that we're missing a point here, and I'm trying to explain it. I'm obviously doing a horrible job. Tonight, we're having this interview. We're talking about this. It's a big moment, a big thing in the NFL. It's on all the major networks. Everybody's trying to figure out what bullying is all about and how it applies to football. Let's eliminate bullying from the conversation. Let me ask you a question. If tonight your producer wasn't on point, your makeup person wasn't on point, your camera guy, your light guy. If somebody in your group wasn't pulling their weight, what would happen in your life? Somebody would step up and try to get them in shape. Somebody would try to point them in the right direction. Somebody would, for no better term, pull their shirt and say, hey, over here, let's get it going. Because it's football, we wanted to make it, oh my God, in a locker room, society has no view into the locker room. It's not true. The reality of it is that everyone has to pull their weight in all walks of life. And we question, challenge, and we have different rules for people who don't. In football, because it's the big ticket item, everybody in America and half of the world is watching, we want there to be a rule. Firefighters have hazing. Police officers have hazing. Almost every business has some sort of initiation. And it's not a mean thing or a violent thing. This thing is a little odd. And I'm not saying that, again, that the kid was wrong or that Richie was wrong or anybody was wrong. It just has a little bit of a different nature because he saved text and emails and voicemails to build a case against the Dolphins. I think there's something here that we all should look at. Should he have done it? Yes, absolutely. But in the grand scheme of things, how does that happen?
Well, if you give us your context from your playing days, who in effect got to, no, I get what you're saying, but in the analogy you gave me in terms of our walk of life compared to maybe a locker room, if I did, and I know they're not comparable here, but if you'd said somebody's not pulling their weight and they either need to either get with a program or get off the ship, I get it. But he said that's not what happened to him, and more specifically, other people said that wouldn't happen in our locker room. It would have never gone that far. I guess there's different sets of rules depending on different locker rooms you're in, different veteran leadership, different coaches that are invested maybe in the offensive line, defensive line, whatever that position coach is going to do here. Mm-hmm. This one just seemed to be from the outside, and I'm talking from what NFL people say, it never would have happened like this in our locker room. Something broke down in the system in Miami.
I'm going to tell you what's really happening in my view. I believe that, again, there's a major issue in America in bullying. There are kids taking their lives all over the country for different reasons. For God knows that they're too big, they're too little, they're black, they're white, their sexual preference, their religious preference. And I think kids are being bullied by different groups of people, and it's a major issue. The nation at large is trying to look to the NFL to set a standard. This kid just happened to file a case at the right time in history, and that's the truth. The reality of it is that almost in every locker room and almost any way of life that I know, if someone's bothering you too much, as men, you usually say, hey, back off. And if someone watches you or witnesses something that's not in the right, there will be somebody who will stand up and say, hey, back off. That's why I'm telling you that this is a little, I don't know all the rules. I don't know all the scenarios. I think there's a little bit more to the story than what we're hearing. We're all passing judgment really early, like we do, because we're in an instant news cycle. We want to have an instant answer the moment something comes out. I would say take a second, let all the information come in, and then let's take a look and see what really happens.